So I went outside with the intention to ground. First and foremost, grounding is so important. Getting your bare feet onto the ground every single day, no matter what it takes, will change your life. For the better, you'll be healthier, happier, all these things. So I just wanted to say that before I get into this. So this video is about healing fear and shame. These are two emotions that come before anxiety. For me, I've found that fear and shame is very closely interlinked to the anxiety, but also to each other as well. So what I mean by this is the fear that's created in a moment from, let's say, me when I think about social situations or anything social, because my biggest fear, I suppose, is social situations. And I've been dealing with a low-key social anxiety for the best part of my life, since I was a teenager. So today I uncovered something very personal to me, and I figured I would share it with you in the beauty of transparency, in the grace of transparency and openness and honesty, that it may help some of you. So here goes. With my intention to ground outside and listening to nature as I sit next to a tree, I hear that when awakening to your Sun Soul Self is a process I've been working with recently that is helping me to rebirth into more of myself. It's a mantra that I've been repeating over and over again, so that's what that is. So when awakening to your Sun Soul Self, deeper wounds of fear will arise. Keep in mind that love is deeper than those fears. So if you are struggling with a fear right now, know that love is deeper first and foremost. My intention was, when I went outside, to learn more about the parts of myself and feelings that I have hidden away from, so that I may finally release them. Her right there, she feels like a person that's not me. It's a person that's gone away in some form, like the innocence of her and the purity, I guess. Anyway, I guess really I didn't believe that she was part of me anymore. This innocent young girl. But it is me. It is me. And I feel her every day in me. That young child just wanting to be cared for. She's still in me, even though I'm an adult now. So I was still believing some patch of my soul, or plexus, was still believing that I wasn't worthy of this life, or who I was. I wasn't worthy of who I was and what I was. And I found out where that came from. I found a root of that in my being. That way I was constantly afraid of approach by others. So as I've mentioned, I think, before, social anxiety for me has been a number one, like, fear driver in my life. Like, it's the main thing I'm afraid of. And I don't know of anything else that I'm more afraid of apart from falling. And they both feel pretty similar now that I think about it. So I'm afraid, I guess, of people approaching me, is what it is. Going to social events, that's me kind of approaching, but I'm more not. Like, I always kind of stay. I'm introverted, so I kind of stay, like, in my sphere. Although I know that there's more to me than just being introverted, because I'm actually more than just that label, right? I'm many other things, as you are too. That way I was constantly afraid of approach by others, in fear of my own self-worth, esteem, attracting others in some way to kill me. That makes it sound really intense, and it really fucking is intense. And it's because in brackets I wrote deeply repressed thought, and it is a deeply repressed thought that what happened before to me, and happened a few times in my life where I sensed that people were they had murderous thoughts in them, but it's not like we all haven't had a murderous thought in us, right? So really what I'm trying to say is that I fell into that thought from somebody so deeply a long time ago that every time I had social situations arise, especially ones that were a bit more challenging, maybe, and maybe something happened where it kind of triggered a little bit of fear in me, well, I think I went the full-blown way and fell into the full fear of that without even knowing it, and that was where things all kind of took a left turn into Anxietyville for me, or Fearville during school. And also the reason that the killing part makes sense in as far as why a young person would ever think that people are killing them when they haven't actually been. Well, we've all experienced it. I know you've experienced it. I know that you've probably had a moment where you thought someone was going to kill you. So I guess I don't really need to explain that too much. But the main reason that I found that I was able to attach to that so much and for so long is because of how low I felt about myself during that time period. Things happened in my growing up period that we all go through that are just like, well, kind of tear children apart, right? Especially going into like the tearing happens from puberty as well, like turning from a child into a teenager. It's a major deal. It's not just from school environments, home environments that we get these fragments of ourselves come apart, so to speak, because when we're born we're whole, and then when basically I think it happens at some point between 1 and your 20s where you kind of fragment, and you have to come back together almost, and that's kind of what we're doing right now, coming back together, healing those pieces. That was the intention from the beginning, right? So the murderous thought in a few people at that time towards me was a direct match or reflection to my own low self-esteem at that time, which is really kind of sad because it's kind of like the low self-esteem that I was feeling was enough to make me want to die, which you wouldn't think can be that, but it kind of was, that's kind of what it was. So And so when I thought and when I felt into other people at school wanting to kill me, which was probably only like one person at school that I think never mentioned anything like that, but well, maybe, you know, it was very blurry. Like, I feel like I've repressed the memory. So anyway, there's some type of memory of that came up for me today, is what I'm trying to say, that I forgot about. So what I realised, though, when this was coming to me and I was writing it down, and as I read it to you now, is the major breakthrough that I think I had as well at the same time. You know, even during a horrible moment in my life where I'm constantly panic attacks because I think there's people in my school that are going to kill me. The major breakthrough is that at that moment, and I didn't even know it, I could feel into the thoughts of others. I could feel into them, and somehow I repressed this. Somehow I twisted it, actually. I twisted this notion, not knowing it. I was doing it out of protection, perhaps, as my younger self. My younger self was doing it out of protection of me. But in that moment when I felt into her thoughts, and, you know, I found that she wanted to kill me. I mean, it's just a split second. It was just a feeling that entered my body, and it was like, I can feel that person wants to kill me. You know, I couldn't compute at that time that I was actually reading into her thoughts. I just felt that thought and thought that, and obviously took it on to be, again, low self-esteem. What else are you going to take that thought on to be? If you don't consciously know that you've just received a thought from somebody else, because you're too young to even know that, and spirituality is not even a thing yet, of course you're gonna feel like, whoa, what is that? That feeling is awful. Let's pretend it's not there. Yeah. And I think that was the start, probably, of like serious social anxiety in me. Perhaps I think it was. I've had anxiety for quite a while, because when I was a kid, I used to not be able to sleep at night, and it used to. I remember in the middle of the night, I would have like a racing heart and stuff, but that was all stuff I could deal with. It was because I didn't have social anxiety whilst I was at primary school. I know that. So somehow I repressed this notion, taking it as low self-esteem, when actually it's like a superpower. Like a superpower sensitivity towards others. So that's the breakthrough that I had of that thing. Because I can still do it to this day. I know I can. I do it all the time, and I pretend that it's not real, but I know we can all do it. We can all feel what other people are thinking, right? You know? And the fact that we don't acknowledge that on a psychic level, on an intuitional level, is kind of dangerous, because it means that we don't, well, I don't know if it's dangerous, but it feels like that, just because it's been like a bit of a, I feel like I've lied to myself all these years, like pretending that it's all been me, it's all been mine, it's all been my stuff. And, you know, a lot of it is because I've attached to it, so it is mine, you know. But now that I'm doing a releasing, recuperating part of my life journey, these things have been arising. This is probably gonna be one of the hardest videos I'll make. Something happened today that I guess I didn't know was gonna happen. I was supposed to go to a social gathering. What happened is I basically just kind of broke down. and went into just crying, constantly crying. I couldn't stop the tears from coming out. I couldn't stop the shaking from happening. So I want to talk to you about why I think that is, and the main reason is shame. If it wasn't for Eddie actually supporting me through this, I couldn't even be making this video with you right now. I couldn't even look at myself. I mean, I probably would have forced myself to go, but maybe there's a reason that I didn't go to this social gathering today. Something deeper has come up, I think, within me. And it's linked with fear and shame, and so I'm going to go through with you some of the things that I'm ashamed about, because I know that on the other side of that shame is something really good. And I have to be open and honest with myself. I want to be open and honest. I want to do the work that it takes to be your full sun, soul self. So here goes. With the fear that I would feel around social situations, I would then feel shame. That fear would turn into shame simply because I would watch everyone else do the same things that I was petrified to do. Petrified to do, and have no problem with it, seemingly anyways, have no problem with it, and definitely not incur the same amount of shame that I was incurring, or fear that I was that occurred in me. And that would just make me feel so much worse. I would feel shameful, and I still do to this day. In this moment, I feel shame. But some higher part of me is not necessarily allowing that shame to manifest as much as it did anymore, as it used to. Because there's something deeper that's kind of trying to come to the surface, I think. So I'm going to list some things that make me feel shameful, and then I'm going to turn them around and talk about how those things can actually be looked at as good. My biggest shame is that in high school I kind of lost all my friends. That I made friends, but then eventually towards the end of my years I ended up with no friends, because the girls that I sort of had befriended, all of them kind of, I guess, saw something in me that they didn't like or whatever, and I was left with basically myself. And I always wondered why did I feel like I was the one that basically didn't deserve friends. And I know now the main reason why I had to move away from those types of people in my life, not because they're bad or any judgment upon them, it's just because I'm different and very different from a lot of the people that were at my high school, for example. So I feel shame over the fact that, in social situations, I just get... I think that the worst part of it is actually the pre stuff. For weeks now I've been trying to psych myself up to go, and I definitely felt psyched up, but something happened this morning that kind of set me on edge, and I feel shame about the fact that I feel like I'm actually dying when I have to go to a social situation. Like, it literally feels like I'm dying, and I've come to accept that, and I feel pretty good about the fact that I'm just here keeping resonance for this earth, and that I hold it very well in terms of connecting with nature. It's where I feel most peace, most at home. And it doesn't mean that I don't want to thrive in society in the moments that require that, though. I feel shame about the fact that I push people away. Like, I genuinely would rather just be in my own space. For sure, I've thought that I'm weird because of that, but really I'm really just not fully sure that's the case. I think the reason that I probably don't feel so comfortable living closer to society, in that I have lots of friends and people around me all the time, is that I feel like people are generally sick out there. Doesn't mean they don't carry lots of beautiful love and light with them, but there is something very dark about society sometimes that can come out in people, and me included. You know, I've picked up on that in myself, and there's no part of me that wishes to express that around people. So I've always hidden my darkness, quote unquote, so to speak, from everyone else, and it meant that I carried a lot of anxiety in my being and shame over the years. So, you know, it's about being able to get to the other side of that now, and I guess the way that I do that is to recognise some of the things that I feel shame about. I feel ashamed about the fact that when I'm in social situations I tend to blush. I tend to blush because when I first went to high school and I made friends, I think I opened my heart so much to these girls, and what happened is, you know, I remember I used to blush because I don't know, I guess I don't really know what the first feeling was, but once I recognised that I used to blush all the time in front of people, I used to feel embarrassed about it, because, you know, it's like, not only am I embarrassed, but everyone else can see that I'm embarrassed, and not necessarily anything to be embarrassed about, so there comes the shame again, you know. It's like feeling shame about a bodily reaction. And I've gotten to find it much less problematic, but it's still there, it still bothers me that everyone can see when I'm blushing. Sometimes it's not always to do with being embarrassed, sometimes it's to do with being passionate, but, you know, I still think that I would much rather have blushing happen on my back or something, as opposed to my face where everyone can see it. But at the same time, you know, it's not a big deal. It's not as much of a big deal as it used to be anyways. I used to cover it up all the time, but now I just let my face be what it is, as you see it, as it is. And the next thing I feel ashamed about is that I don't really fully connect with people. I do connect with people, and I love I connect with. And I connect with many people on the internet. And I've met a few of them, and, you know, connected very, very nicely with them. But I do feel ashamed that I don't really have, like, friends. Like, I don't generally have friends. I don't have a best friend that I could say, you're the person that I would tell everything to. I guess I'm my own best friend in that sense, but also, again, my love is my best friend, which I couldn't do this without him, really. Yeah, so there's that shame, and the other shame is that I'm so sensitive, and I feel everything from other people, and instead of taking any of that on, and instead of being able to stand in my power as being a sensitive soul or an empowered empath, you know, I kind of lose confidence in myself sometimes to actually feel like I have precedence to be somewhere. Getting to the other side of shame, it's not easy. It's what makes the ascension process hard, of course, you know, having to face yourself. Because even though it was put on us by society, by family, by friends, by whatever, it's still us that put it there, you know. We put the shame there. We attached the beliefs to it. We attached the emotions to it. I wish to release them, you know. That's the old me. It's the old Kim, the one that gets really fucking scared to do anything social. Because I'm not afraid of people, you know. I'm not even afraid of death. I can honestly say that. Like, I have a small fear of it because no one really wants to die, but, like, even if someone were to kill me, I know that I would be able to release to my truth, to my space that is peace always. So there's not really anything that anyone can do to me, but still, my imagination, I think, gets the better of me in social situations, and the prior stuff that happens, that goes on in my body and my mind when I'm trying to prepare myself to psych myself up to go to a social gathering. Feels like it's against my nature, and then I start to feel ashamed that I'm not even part of this world, that maybe I'm like an alien and I don't even know where I come from. My last video there, I meant every single fucking word that I said to you, and that was a helpful thing for me too, so I'm glad that it was able to help a lot of you. On the other hand, there are still things that need work, and what I'm finding today is that the things that I'm ashamed of, they have to come to light. They have to really be acknowledged. And I guess now we can go on to the positives. So the positive side of me being afraid of social situations is that I spend more time alone. I spend more time with nature, with animals. You know, I know that I carry a great sense of knowledge and wisdom in me, and a great sense of sensitivity and softness and love in me. And so that's what I'm working with. Yeah, I'm working with it, and I wanted you to know that there's someone else out there that's working on this just as you are. You know, you're not alone, and I know 100% that I'm going to get to this other side and it's going to be filled with everything I could ever ask for. Doesn't mean that it's going to be easy though. So, no matter how hard it can be, know that there is always good to be fleshed out of being truthful and honest with yourself about who you really are. And don't judge yourself too much. We're all in the same boat. Here's where the fear and shame are then turned into and transmuted into something good, which is what I want to help you to kind of get to as well. It's the good that comes out of something so dark like this. The feeling of darkness, the feeling of fear and shame. So I recognize that I have a humble heart, which has come out of this anxiety process, because really what's happened, I think, for me, is that all these years of secretly dealing with social anxiety that kind of, you know, is gone through periods of up and down, where some periods have been like really feeling into that fear all the time, whereas other times have just been more like kind of just like self-doubt. And, you know, I mean, there was moments of like I had a depression during these last years that I've experienced anxiety, but recently it's been on the up. So again, these things have been allowed to come through, I think, today. So, but what I've found is that the anxiety has given me a humble heart, actually. The fear and the shame has given me a bit of a humble heart. I don't know if it was, maybe my heart was always humble, it may have been that, but I think it was, you know, a lot to do with this process that I've just explained to you, that I semi-explained to you. Like, I can't explain my whole life story in like 10 minutes. It'd be cool if I could, but the thing of feeling into other people that may have wanted to kill me at one point in my life, like even if it was just like a one murderous thought, doesn't really, like, that's not really the point. I think the point is what I was talking about in my last video, about the fact that that what we do is we receive a thought, and if we attach emotions to it, it becomes, let's say the thought is a seed, and then we attach an emotion, well then it becomes a sprout, and then whichever way you walk down the path, whether it's left down the positive side or right down the negative side or vice versa, that waters the sprout, you know, and depends on the way you water it, the way that it grows. Does it grow into more anxiety, or does it grow into courage and faith and peace and love? So, yeah. So yeah, it only happened a few times throughout my life, but enough for me to attach a paradigm to it, is what I was just saying just then. So yeah, if I have such a humble heart that if someone I can feel doesn't necessarily like me or doesn't necessarily get me, like if they don't get me, I think it's like a big one. If they don't get me, mainly because I don't get myself in the moment, that's key too. Like, if you get yourself in a moment, if you just feel good about yourself, people just like kind of like you, you know, they understand you. If you're in a moment of confusion about yourself and you feel like shit, well, you know, sometimes social gatherings aren't the best thing to go to because it might enhance that thing, but you also might heal it. So that's the whole point. You can't really like not ever let yourself go out there and live life because of social anxiety, for example. But today I released this older sister, so to speak, that's been trying to protect me all along, and this older sister has actually been kind of like, well, my anxiety, because it's been trying to keep me safe. Because I think back in the day when I was on a deeper subconscious level afraid of dying, I attracted like an angel anxiety to help me stay alive, because, you know, that's kind of what anxiety is hired for, actually. I think anxiety is hired in your being by fear and shame, because it's like the next step up, as I was saying, but it was, you know, it doesn't feel great or anything, but it's definitely a step up from fear and shame. Fear and shame is like on par with death, almost, like the feeling of it. Not the feeling of death, but like the feeling of that you're dying. Yeah, I released that sister angel anxiety because I can genuinely say that I am okay in my life. I am in a good space. I feel guided and protected by my own inner peace. So, like, I found myself. I found peace within my being. Still work to do, clearly. But yeah, I'm okay now, so I've been able to let angel anxiety kind of let her go for the most part, you know. I know that I can't stop myself from making mistakes, and you know, that means there's always potential for me to feel that bad again, for me to go into fear and shame. But there's also not any potential for that to happen, because it's different now. I'm older. I'm this girl as well as this girl. So yeah, I can't say that I won't make mistakes, but what I will do is believe in myself, because that's what I forgot to do. That's what I didn't do. That's what I lost in me. It wasn't the little girl in me, it was the belief in little me. You know, because whatever happened that day when I felt someone in, like I felt into, it might not have even just been that one moment, but that kind of came to me today, and you know, I guess that is what I'm exploring, that one moment where I felt into the feeling of someone else wanting to kill me. Well, I think I took that on as my reason to have low self-esteem, not knowing it, and therefore not believing in myself, not believing in us, in me. We are born worthy. We are not born in sin. We are born worthy, and the world is what borns us into the sin, so to speak. We are born whole. We are born worthy. That is your birthright. No one can take that from you, ever. including angel anxiety, including fear, including shame. Love runs deeper. Love always runs deeper. So not only are you worthy, not only am I worthy of praise, of love, of peace, of joy, of intelligence, of courage, of confidence, but also of charisma. And having wonderful experiences with others. I encourage you to explore your shame and your fear and write down everything you're ashamed about, or talk out loud, or even think in your mind, whatever you want. All the things that you're ashamed of and about yourself. And find a way to see them as positives, and that'll get you going. That'll get you into finding the good in all of this again, because there is good in all of this, always. And I felt that all day today, even though I was, going through this process. So, thank you so much for watching, and I would love to hear your comments about your own journeys and experiences with social anxiety. We can all share as a community and not feel afraid to do so, because no one's judging us here. Peace, love and light to you all.